Podcast.
Today we're going to talk about how to stand out in a competitive environment, what things you should do when you're looking for that next promotion, some of the things you should self-reflect on so that you know whether or not you're setting yourself up for success, and how to really approach the ego that comes behind wanting something that you don't already have that you're seeing other people get. And I remember my first job out of college, working in a 600-person call center. And it was a very chaotic and competitive environment, especially when it came to leadership positions, because there were just so many people that felt like they deserved to move up within the company, and specifically folks who were more tenured than others. And in this role, we had folks ranging from 1 year of tenure all the way up to 10, 15 years of tenure. Everyone wanted to move up the corporate ladder because it seemed like the next best thing to do. And it seemed like everybody was a competitor. You know, even your closest friend that you worked with was a competitor. And at the time, I didn't realize what set the top performers apart from the people who actually deserved to move into a leadership position. So think about that for a second. What sets the top performers apart from the people who deserved to move into leadership positions? Because I always thought that because I was a high achiever, a top performer, I had a lot of knowledge, that I was looked at for support, that I had a voice, that I was relied on for different tasks and additional projects, that I was one that was set up for that next level. But looking back, there was 4 main things that I could have done better that would have automatically given me an advantage over the majority of the work group. And these strategies really are not rocket science. They're very basic principles, but they're often overlooked because of ego. And when you're looking to develop in your career, especially when you're young and you get a lot quickly, ego is usually the main culprit and reason why people are not chosen for promotions. It's one of the main reasons why in my career, when I became a leader, I didn't hire people. And it's one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've always had to provide to folks wondering why they got looked over for a position that they felt very qualified for. And so today I really want to just share these 4 strategies with you. I want you to be able to apply them in your own. And I also want you to know that this isn't just for frontline leadership positions. This is something that you also experience as you move up the corporate ladder. And it applies to frontline, mid-level, and even senior roles. So my goal after this session is that you have some actionable items to take back, to self-reflect on, and really ask yourself, am I doing these things? Because here's my promise to you. If you do these 4 things, you will automatically be in the top 5%. Here's why I say that. Because 95% of people are missing at least one of these things. They're missing at least one. And if you can do all 4 of them, I promise you, you will automatically be in the top 5%. So let's jump right into it. Strategy number 1. Do your job without expectation. Do your job without expecting praise. Do your job without expecting recognition. Do your job without expecting a reward. Don't feel like every little thing you do, you have to get praise for. You got hired to do a job. Do the job. If you do it well, fantastic. You should feel proud of yourself. But don't always expect praise or recognition or for somebody to always come pat you on the back. You're doing what's expected of you, which is doing your job. Show up every single day, put in the work, and deliver high quality results because you take pride in your work. That should be the brand that you're looking for. Somebody who takes pride in their work. When I go into a room, and we're talking about who's going to be the next person we're looking at for a leadership position, we're looking at who we want to give opportunities to. The main people that tend to come up in these conversations are folks that take action in creating a high quality work environment. and they take pride in it, and they do it consistently. And it's extremely important when standing out in a competitive environment, because most people tend to only do things as a reaction to what's expected of them. I'm doing this because my leader asked me to. I'm doing this because I know it's part of my yearly reviews. I'm doing this because I know that I may get in trouble and I don't want to get in trouble, so that's the reason why I'm doing this. Well, that's great. And if that's your motivator, that's perfectly fine. But if those are the reasons why you're doing your job, then leadership isn't for you. And a great leader who's hiring for a position is going to know that right away. That the moment you take that position and you don't have somebody hand-holding you, that you're not going to execute your job because you don't take pride in the work that you do and the outcome of your work. When you're driven by internal motivation, by your own motivation, you're more focused, you're more productive, and you're committed based on your own personal moral values to delivering exceptional results. So do your job without expectation. Let's move on to number 2. And this one seems kind of like a basic concept, but I'll tell you, it doesn't happen very often. Don't give your boss a hard time. We are in an industry where outside of skill and your ability to do a job and perform its basic job functions, people want to hire people that are easy to work with. Because everybody has stuff on their plate and they only have X amount of emotional energy to be able to output on any given day. So the risk of somebody coming into a new position and stealing some of that emotional energy from you is a very, very rough thing to have to deal with. And that doesn't mean that you can't have conversations with your boss where you provide feedback on certain things, and every once in a while you have venting sessions. But giving your boss a hard time when it has to do with things that are uncontrollables, that are part of the business, that are very elementary, that have to do with people, these things show that you're not emotionally matured. You're here to do a job. It's a business. Your boss is here to do a job. And they want to hire somebody who will help them do their job better, who will make their business look better. And if you're somebody who is constantly giving your boss a hard time, then it's going to be something that they're going to self-reflect on. And they're going to say, if it's like this now, gosh, wait until they see all the stuff we have to deal with as leaders. So really ask yourself in what I like to call is this pendulum of positive and negative energy. And you can kind of gauge where you're at. And so think about a pendulum. And on one side of the pendulum is positive, thought-provoking, great conversation. And on the other side is venting, pessimistic, constant issues, and not so great conversation. And every time you meet with your boss, I want you to ask yourself, how often is it a pessimistic conversation and how often is it a positive conversation? And use your hands right now, and I want you to weigh it out. And if it's a balance, then maybe do a little bit to just swing the left to the upside, right? The positive to the upside. If it's more pessimistic and constant complaints and the negative side significantly outweighs the positive side, that's okay. You can still fix it. But you've got to make sure that the negative interactions don't outweigh the positive interactions. So you're going to have to be extremely intentional when you're meeting with your boss to balance out the pendulum and even be a little bit more positive and optimistic. Because remember, if they hire you, they want to be able to work with somebody who is now going to be their peer, who is not going to give their boss a hard time and who's not going to give them a hard time, because people want to work with people who are positive influence, who will provide positive emotional energy and can help them achieve a goal. So make your boss's life easier. Offer solutions instead of problems. Be open to feedback. And really just be prepared at any given time to say yes to something they ask you to do for them. Those are the main things. So recap, strategy number 1, do your job without expectation. Strategy number 2, don't give your boss a hard time. All right, number 3. In sales, there's something called top-down selling. And it's the idea that when you're selling something to a customer, you always want to sell the biggest package, and you want to go down from there, because if you start low, there's nowhere else to go. Well, I use that same strategy, but I pivoted over to something called using top-down thinking. And the purpose of top-down thinking is so that you remove emotional energy from changes, new things being implemented, things that are impacting you, and you start thinking about it from a top-down perspective, where top is the highest level of your business and the bottom is you. And the way that this works is you're basically reverse engineering the impact to think about first the impact it has for the business instead of thinking about the impact it has for you. Because here's something that happens. When there's a change, think about a change that's happened recently that frustrated you. The first thing that we do, and it's human nature, is we think about how a change impacts us directly. It's the first thing we always think about. How's this going to impact my job, my life, my money, the ease of doing my job stability, etc. Well, what happens when we think about the impact to us first is that now we start exhibiting emotional energy. And when we start exhibiting this emotional energy, we have a harder time staying in a logical mindset and thinking about the bigger picture. So when you start using the top-down thinking framework, you start thinking like a CEO. You start thinking like a senior leader. And you ask yourself the question, what's the impact to the business? Why would the business be making this decision? What's the benefit to the business to make this choice? Now you're thinking down. Now you ask yourself, what's the benefit to my organization for this decision? What's the benefit to my manager? Now, what's the benefit for me? And when you use that approach, you're able to logically see the reasoning behind why these decisions were made, hopefully. And if not, obviously get with your leader. But the reason why this is extremely important is that when you finally go and you sit in a team meeting or a room with your peers and your leader's in there and they're discussing the change, and you have the majority of your team that started from the bottom, that are very emotional, that are talking about the reasons why something may not work, you're helping as that voice to talk about the big picture and there to support your leader. And that way they know that when you're in this meeting, they can always rely on you. And let me tell you, when we have an employee that we know when we jump into a meeting is going to be there as a voice of reason, it trumps any sort of exceptional performance from a sales perspective. It trumps that. It's so important for your leader to feel like you're going to be the person who's going to help him get through this. You're going to stand next to them and stand tall next to them, and you're going to get them through, and you're going to help get the team through this change together by helping people think differently. Because if you're here listening to this podcast now, you probably have a loud voice, or people probably look to you for guidance on certain things, which means that you have influence. And if you are somebody who, when a change happens, automatically move into the pessimistic mindset and think about impact to me, then I'll tell you this. Your leadership sees that. And the number one thing that a leader is responsible for is managing change. And if you can't do that at your level, how do you expect to do that at the next level? So using top-down thinking is extremely important. And I think as you do it more, it'll actually get you ready, not just for the next position, but the position after that and the position after that. Because as you start learning more about the impact to different parts of the business, you start being able to teach it, and you start being able to ask different questions that give you different pieces of knowledge of understanding the broader scope of impact to the entire company versus just to your specific role. The last strategy, which is something that I actually see often even in leadership, but it's more prevalent in frontline positions, is solving problems without permission. We've got to take initiative, we've got to take ownership, and we have to demonstrate our value. We got to make sure we're not waiting for permission. We have to show that we're a self-starter, that we're a problem solver, and that we're results driven. And that is not tied into just achieving your metrics. It doesn't tie into that. That's a part of your job. That's an expectation. So if I'm going into an interview and I'm going up against 10 other people for the same role, and every single one of those individuals is a above average consistent performer, some of them may even be top 5%, what's going to make me stand out? Because it's not going to be my performance. Everybody who's applying for this role has good performance. Otherwise, they wouldn't have permission to apply for this position. It's that I know how to take initiative. I know that when something's broken, I'm going to find a way to fix it. And I'm going to demonstrate my value outside of just my core job duties. And an example of this could be, let's say, you identified within, talking about the same framework that we talked about with top-down thinking. If we're thinking about a team meeting, let's say we're in a team meeting and you identify that 4 or 5 of your peers are consistently negative in the team meeting, and it's impacting the engagement of the other half of your team. And you're noticing through your emotional intelligence that certain people are talking less now because every meeting is being controlled by these 5 people who continue to be pessimistic and constantly talk about their emotions. So how do you solve problems without permission in this situation? It's actually very simple. You don't have to go and change the world. You don't have to go change a process to be able to embody this concept. The first thing you do is go talk about it with your leader. Hey, you know what I'm noticing? I'm noticing that Joe and Sally are less engaged in our meetings. I'm noticing that Jim and Tom are constantly talking about negative things, their issues, what's not working for them. And the other 2, who used to always share ideas and communicate, haven't really talked in the last couple meetings. And I'd really like it if we could set expectations in the next meeting on just a positive environment for folks to be able to collaborate and come and pull energy away, not give emotional energy. And so that way people enjoy coming to our meetings and that we can all enjoy it together. And I can own that. I think I, as a peer, will have more impact because I'm not their boss. And it's coming from somebody who's at their same level. So I would love to own that if you can give me maybe 5 minutes to have that conversation with the team of really what we've noticed. Obviously not calling out any names, but really of what we've noticed over the last few team meetings. This is a very simple way for you to go and show your boss that you care. You care about making their job easier. You care about the team. You care about the individuals on the team. You're going to go out of your way to solve a problem that doesn't really directly impact you. All because you care about the business and the team and the culture. You didn't have to have your boss come and tell you, hey, our team meetings are getting a little bit negative. What do you think we should do? Can you own that? That's what happens the majority of the time. 98% of folks wait for their boss to tell them to do something before they do it. And it's something that if you implement and embody very quickly, solving problems without permission, you will automatically stand out. and you will automatically gain buy-in from leadership. And the main reason is because nobody else is doing it. Everybody's waiting to be pushed forward instead of moving forward. So solve problems without permission. So now if you implement these 4 strategies consistently, again, remember, without expectation, because it's your passion, it's who you are, and you focus on doing it in a way that really helps people solidify that you're somebody who takes pride and cares for the business, I can promise you, you're going to be in the top 5% of candidates being considered for that next promotion. So let's recap real quick the 4 strategies. Number 1, do your job without expectation. You don't need praise, you don't need recognition, you don't need reward. You take pride in your own work because it's who you are. Number 2, don't give your boss a hard time. Think about the pendulum. Are your interactions mostly positive or are they mostly negative? And if you're identifying a weight in one side or the other, you can fix it. Just be intentional. Drive more positive interactions. Be there to help support your boss. Show them that you care and you're going to make the decision to change because you realize that your emotional energy has an impact on the work that you do and on the business that you're in. Number 3, use top-down thinking. Think like a CEO. Think like a leader. Share your thoughts when you're in your meetings with your peers. Share the top-down approach when you're with your boss. Show them that you're thinking about the business at a high level. Remove emotion. Think bigger. Use top-down thinking. And lastly, number 4, solve problems without permission. You don't need to change the world. You don't need to flip the business upside down. You don't need to change a process or policy or a way something is done in a different channel for you to solve a problem without permission. There's so many things that are happening within your core group, within your smaller organization, under your mid-level leader, that you can take an initiative and show that you're somebody who wants to help solve problems and will do it without somebody asking you. Don't wait for permission. Take initiative. And I promise you, if you can do these 4 things, and you do it consistently without expectation, you will be in the top 5% of people who are looked at for leadership roles. I can promise you that. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.